This is problem 7.10 from Brigham and Houston Fundamentals of Financial Management, concise 9th edition. In this particular problem, we're going to break down yield to maturity into two component pieces. One's called the current yield and one's called the capital gains yield. All rates of return can be broken down into these two components. We call the current yield is actually the cash flow yield. That's how many dollars actually change hands per year, all right, expressed as a rate of return. The capital gains yield is the anticipated price change. All right, so setting up this particular problem, we see that the market interest rate on this bond has changed since it was issued. It was issued a year ago, all right. They have outstanding bonds with 9 years left, and they have a 9% coupon rate and a $1,000 par value. They were issued 1 year ago, okay. So it's 1 year later. They were issued at par, and now the price has dropped to $910.30. They got 9 years to go. They're going to pay $1,000 9 years from now, and each year they're going to pay $90 of interest. That's the 9% annual coupon rate times the par value. So the yield to maturity on this bond as of today, looking forward, solve for the rate, for 9 remaining payments of $90, and then return of principal. Oops, I'll go in order. Sell them for $910, and then they're going to return the principal at the end of the period. All right, so the current yield to maturity on the bond is 10.59%. Now, when the bonds were issued, they were issued at par. That means that the market interest rate was 9%. Anytime the price of a bond is equal to the par value, the yield to maturity is also equal to the coupon rate. So when the bond was issued, it was issued at their par value of $1,000. It means that the market interest rate was 9%, which was the same as the coupon rate. Since then, the price of the bond has gone down because interest rates have gone up. So whoever bought these bonds when they were first issued is now saddled with a bond that's only paying a 9% a year premium. Well, new bonds would be selling at, if a company was issuing a new bond today, it'd have its coupon rate set around 10.6%. So investors have lost some money. By the way, they only lose money if they sell the bond. If you hold this bond for the next 9 years, that price will eventually go to $1,000. So if you hold the bond to maturity, you're going to get, assuming it doesn't default, you'll get $90 a year for 9 more years, and then the $1,000. And then you will have earned the 9% rate that you originally anticipated. But people trade bonds back and forth, and they pay attention to current yield, which is the cash flow gain, and the capital gains yield, the price change. All right, so for the coming year, what's the expected current and capital gains yield? Well, the yield to maturity is 10.59%. The current yield is defined as the annual cash flow, or the coupon, divided by the current price. So that's where you get current yield. So if the annual cash flow is $90 and the bond is selling for $910, then your current yield is 9.89. The capital gains yield is the change in price. Okay? And to get that, take the yield to maturity and subtract the current yield. All right? So that's your capital gains yield. The expected capital gains yield over the next year, if there is no change in market interest rates, when this bond has 8 years to go, and if the market interest rate is still 10.59, the price of the bond 1 year from now will have gone up. How much does it go up? By about 0.71%. So that's what the capital gains yield means, that over the next year you would expect the price of this bond to go up 0.71%. Now, will the actual realized yields be equal to or to the expected yield if interest rates change? No, because the price of the bond's going to change. As the price of the bond changes, the current yield changes. The annual cash flow stays the same, but it's divided by whatever the current price is. And as the price moves around, so does the yield to maturity. So these numbers are at any given point in time looking forward, but they change continuously. And by the way, even if the yield to maturity stayed the same over the course of the next year, note that the next year's current yield is going to go down because the price of the bonds come up and the capital gains yield goes up. In fact, we could march this thing out over the rest of its life. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. I said 3. Let's take it down to 0. 2, 1, 0. You can see that over its life, if market interest rates do not change, and that's a pretty strict assumption, I'd assume that they will change, because they change continuously throughout the day, let alone over the course of a year. So when you look at the price increasing each year, that's what you're getting down here. The capital gains yield is the anticipated price change, assuming no change in the yield to maturity. Okay? But this mix changes all the time. Okay? So the current yield is simply the annual cash flow divided by what the price is today. And then the difference between the total yield to maturity and the current yield, that's the capital gains yield. This bond is selling at a premium, or at a discount. Discount bonds, by definition, have positive capital gains yield. Premium bonds, by definition, have negative capital gains yield. And I could actually just copy this example down. If we assume that instead of the price going down, the price had gone up to $1,100. Okay, oops, got to make it a negative. If the price had gone up to $1,100, which means that the yield to maturity decreased, note that the current yield is higher than the yield to maturity, which means that the capital gains yield has to be negative. The sum of these two numbers is the yield to maturity. By definition, a premium bond price will decrease as it approaches maturity. On the day it matures, it's worth $1,000. There's no more cash flows You're going to get $1,000 tomorrow. What's the present value of $1,000 tomorrow? Is right around $1,000. All right, now in footnote 7, it also says that some brokerage houses show the current yield. All brokerage houses show it. It's commonly quoted everywhere, as we will show in some of our exercises going forward. But whatever, footnote 7, some brokerage houses, meaning all brokerage houses, show the current yield. And it gives you a measure of cash flow. All right, and some people care more about cash flow. Some people care more about capital gains. It's the yield to maturity that actually really matters to investors, though.